Hey, I hope you guys are doing well today. Today's lesson is pretty simple. We are focused on telling the differences between both prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. So I decided to do something that a little bit it's kind of fun, but it's going to help you guys kind of understand the difference between the two. Now, take a look at this slide real quick and just tell me the differences between these two living things. Okay, pretty simple. Hopefully, you guys are able to kind of tell the difference. Let's try one a little bit harder than that. What about this one here? Now, with the two here, and hopefully, whether it's the zebra or whether it's this euglena here, uh, one thing that I want you guys to kind of figure out or understand um, is that the difference or the big difference between these two things is what we call complexity. And I want you guys to think of this word here, complexity. And when it comes to the distinguishing between prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells, if we can understand that the biggest difference between these two types of cells is complexity, everything else will be very simple. So again, today's notes is focused specifically on telling the differences between what we call prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. My goal for you guys today is, just as I've said, being able to distinguish the differences between prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. So, starting off, what we understand is that when it comes to living things, all living things, they have to be made up of one or more cells. In fact, that is one of the characteristics of life that we've recently talked about. And when it comes to living things, they're either going to consist of what we call a prokaryotic cell, or they're going to be made up of what we call eukaryotic cells. Again, one of the things I want to emphasize to you guys when it comes to knowing the differences between prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells is that word complexity. And guys, even if you can look at the picture right now, you can kind of notice there the complexity that I'm referring to. If we look on the left is an example of a prokaryotic cell. Pretty simple, not a lot of stuff, if you want to say, inside of this cell. Now, if we look at we're looking just at the big picture of the zebra. But if we begin to break it down, this organism here, or this zebra, is made up of millions of cells, right? And what you can see is just you see the stripes, you see the fur, you see the eyes, you see the nose, but you should be able to see that it's more complex than this one single cell on the left. Now, again, that second picture or below the zebra is what we call a euglena. That's a little bit more tough to be able to tell the difference between the two because they almost look identical to each other. But if we look inside of this euglena, you can notice a lot of parts inside of it. And not just parts, many different types of parts or organs, which we'll talk about in a second, inside of this euglena. When it comes to prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells, let's start out with prokaryotic cells. When it comes to prokaryotic cells, they are cells that are simple. And next to prokaryotic cells, I want you guys to think of the word no. In fact, underline, highlight that word no. No. Pro, no. The reason why I have you guys highlighting that word or underlining the word no is what we understand about prokaryotic cells, since they are very simple, they have no nucleus, and they have no other membrane-bound organelles. They are only consisting of one single cell, which we use the term unicellular. When it comes to eukaryotic cells, it's the opposite of it. So when it comes to eukaryotic cells, I want you guys to put the word do in parentheses and underline and highlight that word. You and do. You and do. And the reason why I got you guys to highlight that is because when it comes to eukaryotic cells, they tend to be a lot more complex. They do have a nucleus. They do have other membrane-bound organelles. They can either be unicellular or they can be multicellular, meaning they're made up of many cells. Remember, prokaryotic cells are simple. Pro and no. No nucleus, no membrane-bound organelles. Eukaryotic cells are more complex. They do have a nucleus, and they do have other membrane-bound organelles. So now, your question may be, what is an organelle? What is a membrane? What is a membrane-bound organelle? When we think of an organelle, we can kind of see that, or we do see that root word organ inside of organelle. And that's what we want to think about when it comes to an organelle. Is it's just like an organ inside of your body that has a special purpose. For example, when it comes to your heart, the heart inside of you, its main purpose is to be able to pump blood throughout your body. Organelles serve the same purpose. They're organs inside of the cell. Organelles are small structures inside of a cell that have a specific function. For example, when it comes to the nucleus, its main job is to store the organism's DNA. When it comes to the mitochondria serves as the powerhouse of the cell, meaning it's going to make energy for the cell. When it comes to membranes, or what we call membrane-bound organelles, the membrane itself is considered that outside layer surrounding the organelle. If we take a look at this picture here, we can start to tell the differences between a prokaryotic cell and a eukaryotic cell. Remember, guys, I want you guys to think of the word complexity because we can clearly see the differences in complexity from the prokaryotic cell and the eukaryotic cell. When it comes to the prokaryotic cell, if we notice here, in the middle is the DNA material, but there is no membrane that is surrounding it. So we don't actually consider this a nucleus inside of the prokaryotic cell. Instead, we actually call it a nucleoid, which just describes the region where the DNA is at. If we look to the cells on the right side with the euglena in the plant and the animal cells, those will have a nucleus to them. Inside of the nucleus will be the DNA itself. Examples of each type of cell. When it comes to prokaryotic cell, the only living thing that is prokaryotic cell is bacteria. If you are not bacteria, then you fall in the category of eukaryotic. When it comes to eukaryotic cells, you can go back to your understanding of kingdoms. You understand that when it comes to your kingdoms, you have your eubacteria, your archaeobacteria, your protist, your animal, your plant, and your fungi kingdom. If you do not fall under the bacteria kingdoms, then you're considered a eukaryotic cells, meaning any animals, plants, fungus, protist,